The U.S. has proposed a new port fee targeting China-built vessels operating in American ports. This move is part of broader trade policy measures aimed at reducing reliance on Chinese-manufactured ships and strengthening domestic shipbuilding capabilities. The fee would apply to foreign-built vessels, potentially increasing operating costs for shipping companies relying on Chinese-made cargo ships. The policy aligns with recent efforts to bolster U.S. maritime industries and counter China's dominance in global shipbuilding. However, critics argue that it could have unintended economic consequences, disrupting supply chains, driving up consumer prices, and straining international trade relations. On the other hand, China has strongly opposed the proposal, calling it unfair and protectionist. Beijing has urged the U.S. to reconsider its stance, warning that such a measure could violate World Trade Organization (WTO) rules and lead to retaliatory trade actions. This raises key questions. 1. How will this impact global trade? 2. Could this fee significantly disrupt supply chains? 3. What are the broader economic and political implications? Let's break it down and analyze the potential consequences of this controversial policy change. The U.S. proposal. What's at stake? The Trump administration has introduced a port fee that would impose new charges on vessels manufactured in China but operating in U.S. waters. This measure is part of a larger strategy aimed at reducing reliance on Chinese-built ships and revitalizing America's struggling shipbuilding industry. Why is the U.S. doing this? For years, China has dominated the global shipbuilding market, producing more than 40% of the world's commercial vessels. Meanwhile, the U.S. shipbuilding industry has declined, with fewer domestic manufacturers able to compete due to high labor costs and outdated facilities. The U.S. government argues that placing a fee on Chinese-built vessels will 1. Encourage companies to invest in U.S.-made ships instead of relying on Chinese shipyards. 2. Reduce economic dependence on China's maritime industry. 3. Create jobs within the American shipbuilding sector. Pushback from the shipping industry. Despite these goals, the proposal has sparked controversy among shipping companies and international trade groups. Critics argue that the plan could 1. Drive up costs for importers who rely on affordable shipping rates. 2. Increase supply chain bottlenecks, leading to longer delivery times. 3. Spark retaliatory tariffs or restrictions from China, further escalating trade tensions. 4. Violate international trade laws, potentially triggering legal challenges from global trade bodies. Key elements of the proposal. 1. Target. Chinese-built vessels calling at U.S. ports. 2. Objective. Strengthen the domestic shipbuilding industry. 3. Potential impact. Higher operational costs, supply chain delays, and global trade tensions. Many in the logistics and retail sectors worry that added fees on Chinese-built ships could raise the cost of imported goods, ultimately affecting consumers and businesses alike. With such high stakes, the question remains, will this policy achieve its goal, or will it backfire? China's response. Strong opposition. China has responded harshly to the proposed U.S. port fees, labeling them as protectionist trade policies designed to unfairly target Chinese-built vessels. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce has condemned the move, stating that it violates international trade norms and could lead to serious repercussions for U.S.-China trade relations. Key concerns from China. 1. WTO violation. Beijing argues that the policy discriminates against Chinese-built ships in a way that violates World Trade Organization (WTO) regulations. 1. If implemented, China may file a formal complaint with the WTO, challenging the legality of the fee. 2. Higher costs for shipping companies. Major shipping firms using Chinese-built vessels would face increased fees, which would likely be passed on to importers and, eventually, consumers. 3. Potential retaliation. China has hinted at possible countermeasures, such as new tariffs on U.S. exports or additional restrictions on American companies operating in China. The China Shipowners Association has called the proposal a direct attack on global trade, warning that it could escalate trade tensions and disrupt key shipping routes. A spokesperson for China's Ministry of Commerce urged the U.S. to uphold free trade principles and abandon measures that harm global supply chains. Chinese officials have also warned that the fee would add further strain to already fragile U.S.-China relations. Many analysts believe that if the U.S. moves forward with this proposal, it could trigger retaliatory measures that impact not just shipping but multiple sectors of the economy. The big question remains, will China take action, or will diplomatic pressure force the U.S. to reconsider? Industry reactions and business concerns. The proposed port fee has triggered mixed reactions from the global shipping and logistics sector, with some in favor and others strongly opposed. Support from U.S. shipbuilders. U.S. shipbuilding companies and industry groups support the measure, believing it will revive domestic manufacturing and reduce foreign competition. Advocates argue that the policy could spur investment in American shipyards and create thousands of jobs in the industry. Opposition from global shipping companies. Major shipping companies, including Maersk and MSC, warn that the fees could lead to higher operational costs and ripple effects across supply chains. Trade groups argue that adding costs to shipping could increase freight rates, pushing up consumer prices on imported goods. Retail organizations, such as the National Retail Federation, caution that the new fee could exacerbate inflation by raising import costs for businesses. Potential consequences for global trade. 1. Freight costs may rise, increasing the price of goods in key industries such as electronics, apparel, and manufacturing. 2. Shipping delays could occur if companies adjust routes or avoid U.S. ports to sidestep the fees. 3. Supply chains could face disruptions, affecting businesses reliant on China-built vessels. 4. China may retaliate with tariffs or restrictions on U.S. exports, further straining trade relations. As businesses assess the impact, the big concern is clear. Will the added costs outweigh the potential benefits of supporting U.S. shipbuilders? Historical context. Similar trade disputes. This is not the first time that trade policies have targeted foreign industries in an effort to shift economic dependencies. 2018. Steel and aluminum tariffs. 1. The U.S. imposed tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, aiming to protect domestic manufacturers. 2. China, Canada, and the EU retaliated, imposing counter-tariffs on U.S. goods. 3. Result: higher costs for manufacturers, supply chain disruptions, and prolonged trade tensions. 4. Lesson: trade disputes often escalate beyond their original scope, leading to unintended economic consequences. The shipping industry is closely monitoring whether this port fee will trigger a similar cycle of retaliation. What's next? Possible outcomes. The outcome of this policy remains uncertain, but there are 3 primary scenarios that could unfold. 1. U.S. implements the fees. 1. If the U.S. enforces the proposed fees, China may respond with retaliatory tariffs on American exports. 2. This could escalate into a wider trade dispute, affecting industries beyond shipping, such as agriculture, manufacturing, and technology. 3. Global supply chains may face higher costs and delays as shipping companies adjust routes to minimize exposure to the fees. 2. U.S. revises the plan. 1. The U.S. could modify the policy, offering exemptions or phase-in periods to reduce economic disruptions. 2. Negotiations between U.S. trade officials and Chinese authorities could lead to a compromise that prevents further escalation. 3. Industry lobbying efforts may influence lawmakers to soften the policy or provide subsidies to affected businesses. 3. Legal challenges delay implementation. 1. The World Trade Organization, WTO, or affected companies could challenge the fee in court, delaying or even blocking its enforcement. 2. If the policy is deemed discriminatory, the U.S. might be forced to reconsider or face trade penalties from the WTO. 3. Some industry groups may file lawsuits, arguing that the fees violate international maritime agreements. Regardless of which path is taken, the long-term consequences of this policy will reshape global shipping and trade relations. The world is now waiting to see, will the U.S. press forward, or will pressure from China and industry leaders force a change? Conclusion: the U.S. port fee proposal targeting China-built vessels has become a major flashpoint in international trade. While supporters see it as a necessary step to strengthen domestic shipbuilding, opponents warn of economic risks, supply chain disruptions, and rising costs. Will the U.S. stand firm on this policy, or will global pressure force a reconsideration? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on global trade and shipping. Sources will be listed in the description.